This is Proverbs chapter 22 and verse 6. Train up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it. First and foremost, I want to give all praise, honor, and glory unto Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rachak, Vadash. Double honors to the elder apostles and the elder bishops of Great Millstone, who rule very well, very beautifully. Double salutations to the Akim out here pushing this gospel in truth and in sincerity to the best of their ability, given to them by Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai. Peace, blessings, and salutations be unto the elect scattered abroad. May the election of Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Lord willing, fall upon your houses. This is Brother Quanah Watts from the Arizona Great Millstone Camp. Come back at you, Lord will, with the edifying lesson through the spirit and power of Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai. Lord will, it is edifying. Lord will, it is straight to the point. And this is going to be a quick one, man. I don't want to make this too long, man, but just as a quick testimony, I had just seen, one of my kids' friends, little girl about the age of 3, about to be 4, basically standing, around a group of grown jakes, where we talking about men, they got that peppery beard look, right? They got that gray. These are older men, right? Early 40s, late 40s, right? These are grown men, and you had a 3-year-old girl go over to them and is basically trying to talk to them like they her friend, and the parents are nowhere to be found, nowhere around, and a few years back I ended up doing, a research, in the state that I live in, right here in Arizona, and Arizona is the #1 state for child sex trafficking and drug trafficking and so on and so forth. So in my mind, I'm like, damn, hell no. Like, that couldn't have been my child, over there talking to some grown-ass adults, and and the parents are nowhere to be found. They're not outside watching their child, and the area that we live in is heavy drug, homeless infested, man, and druggy infested, right? So you think that you would, want to be on point with that, watching your kids, making sure your kids are okay. But see, again, you got these parents out here, man, that just allow their kids to act and say and do anything that they want, right? And this is why this world is full of these evil-ass, devilish-ass children out here, man. It's because of the parents, right? The parents aren't being exactly that. They're not being parents, man. They're out here trying to be, I want to be the cool parent. I want my child to trust me and be able to confide in me and this, that, and the third. Well, that's not the way to fucking do it, man. We just read, I'll read it again, Proverbs 22 and 6, train up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it. And how are we supposed to train up our child? Well, the way that we've been training our children when we're in the world definitely wasn't fucking helping, So there has to be another way. And the only and right way is following the scriptures. It's Deuteronomy chapter 6 and verse 6. It says, in these words, right, the words of Yahweh Bashem Shai, the scriptures, right, which I command thee this day shall be in thine heart, and thou shalt teach them diligently unto thy children, right? So these words, right, the law, statutes, commandments, right, we're supposed to be teaching to our children as much as possible, right? Again, right, we're in captivity, we're not perfect. Sometimes we forget, we got stresses and all this other shit we got to deal with, but this is something, when you have children, this is something that you have to focus on. You know what I mean? Something I try to do personally within myself, and Lord will, it'll be helpful to y'all, is I'll try to read some of these stories of our forefathers, right? The ones that, kids will get excited about, right? So King David receiving that power, and, the mighty man running through a troop of the Philistines to get King David water, or, I'll read about, Judith, or I'll read about Susanna, or I'll read about, because I have a lot of, I have daughters. I have 5 daughters, 1 son. So I'll read about those different things, you know what I mean? And read them to my children, right? So that way they get accustomed to those stories, right? And then as they get older, I'll start to teach them certain laws or certain things that they, and kind of ease them into it, man. You don't have to go full-fledged and try to cram all of it into your child, but nonetheless, you're still supposed to be teaching it to them, man. You're supposed to teach these words unto your children, man. These law, statutes, commandments unto your children, so that way when they grow up, they're following those law, statutes, commandments. They have a certain lifestyle that they're living, which is appeasing unto the Lord, right? Because we see the lifestyle that we were living and that we were taught, right, coming in this world, growing up in this world, and that shit never fucking goddamn did us any good. Never did us any good, man. Right? I was told, that which is relevant even to now, right, and even in this truth, right? I was told that a child is supposed to be seen and not heard, right? Child is supposed to do a lot more listening, right, than they are talking, right? Especially when around grown folks, which is heavy, right? The scriptures talk about, that if thou love to hear, then you're ultimately going to be wearing out the doorsteps of, of your elder or somebody that's, ultimately above you, man. You got two ears and one mouth for a reason, right? Which is heavy, and as well as I was told, that a child is not supposed to be talking to strangers, right? Which that's not necessarily in the scriptures, but that's still something that's relevant that we can teach our kids, right? Not to talk to strangers. You know what I mean? You could be friendly and say, hey, hi, so on and so forth, but not to sit there and try to have a full-fledged conversation. You don't want to be rude to them, but at the same time, you're not trying to make everybody your damn friend, especially out here in the area, or really in this world, right, where children are being snatched up left and fucking right, man. Children don't need to be talking to no strange adult anyway, for any reason, This is why all these fucking kids is being missing, man. You got a whole shit ton of lazy ass parents raising monstrous ass kids, man. Not teaching the scriptures to their kids, And this is why these households are so fucked up. Why these kids are so fucked up, right? I'll read it again, verse 7 is, thou shalt teach them diligently unto thy children, and thou shalt talk of them when thou sittest in thy house, and when thou walkest by the way, and when thou liest down, and when thou risest up. That's right. And when your child ultimately goes outside of that guideline, outside of the what they're supposed to be doing, right? Because we understand that foolishness is bound in the heart of a child. You are supposed to chastise them, man. That's not to say that you just haul off and just whoop your child's ass every time they go off or they do something stupid, right? We still, operate in mercy, right? We still operate in a balance, right? But when your child is doing something multiple times and they're just not listening, you are supposed to whoop they ass, right? And we'll grab a couple more scriptures and we'll get out of here, right? This is Sirach chapter 30, and it says, he that loveth his son causeth him oft to feel the rod, that he may have joy of him in the end. That's right? When your child is doing something they're not supposed to be doing, right, you are supposed to whoop their ass, especially if it's something very dangerous, something that can hurt them, right? Something that's detrimental to their health. Shit like that, you whoop their ass. This whole movement that these people got in the world talking about, I don't want to hurt my child, I don't want to beat him. Hey, well, that's doing them, far more evil than you just whooping their ass. You not disciplining your child is doing them far more evil than you just telling them not to do something, or you whooping their ass. You're basically looking at your child and saying, you know what? Go ahead and do it. That's basically what you should be saying, man. And that shit has translated, right, into being adults. You see a whole shit ton of adults that sit here, instead of warning and telling their loved ones or this, that, and the third, hey, man, don't do that. That's going to hurt you. That's going to be this, that, and the third. Hey, they just let their people do it. And they're talking about, oh, I love my brother, or I love this and the third. Well, if you love them, you'll tell them what they're doing is bad and turn them into, or direct them and guide them into a way that's going to benefit them physically, mentally, spiritually. But see, again, that whole not wanting to whip your kid's ass, right, and letting them do whatever the hell they want to do has fucked this whole world up, man. Look at all these little fucking gremlins walking around here, man. These people are fucked up, man. And it ultimately starts with us, right? It starts with us. And there's something that, I've been having in my mind, man, as far as, how we're supposed to be acting, right? There's something that, I heard in the world, a while ago, and I've just been meditating on it lately. Be the change you want to see in the world, right? And the only change that we want to see is righteousness being established in the earth, right? Yahweh Shai coming back and establishing righteousness forever in the earth. You know, the kingdom, you know, as it is in heaven being established here on earth, man. You know, and that starts with us. So we have to follow these guidelines. Our child going off, doing something that is ultimately detrimental to their health, their life, you know what I mean? And name, right? Because a name, right, is more precious than rubies, man. You don't want to tarnish your name. You don't want to tarnish your parents' name, you know? So some type of punishment has to be, brought forth, right? And I'll drop down, because at the end of the day, if you're not chastising your child is then going to end up continuing to disrespect you, continue to do something that is again going to get themselves killed, man. You know, and see, before that happens, right, according to the scriptures, right, if a child is being disobedient, if a child is being, rebellious, right, according to the scriptures, you're supposed to put that child to death, man. You bring him to the elder, right? If he's not listening to you, you bring him to the elders. If you're not listening to the elder, hey, you got to stone him, man. That's in the scriptures. You know, let's bring that out real quick. I think it's Deuteronomy 22 or 21. So 21, verse 18. Right here, Deuteronomy 21, verse 18. It says, if a man have a stubborn and rebellious son, which will not obey the voice of his father or the voice of his mother, and that when they have chastened him, will not hearken unto him, right? Then shall his father and his mother lay hold on him and bring him unto the elders of the city and unto the gate of the place. And they shall say unto the elders of the city, this our son is stubborn and rebellious. He will not obey our voice. He is a glutton and a drunkard, right? You're just out here doing whatever the fuck you want, really, right? And all the men of his city shall stone him with stones that he die. When you have a rebellious child that don't want to do anything that you tell them to do, that child, according to the scriptures, right, this is what would happen in ancient time. That child is supposed to be put to death. Now, we can't do that in this captivity, man. You go to, child endanger, you get hit with child endangerment, child neglect, child murder, you know what I mean? Or whatever charges they'll trump up on you. So we can't do those things, man. You know? So people just end up, letting their child do whatever. But still, that doesn't mean that you can't chastise your child. You know? Instead of hitting them, you can chastise them, right? You could, there's something that I grew up on. It was uncle daycare, right? My mom would send me to my uncles when I did something bad, and he would, make me hold some cans in my hand and make me do a wall sit. You know what I mean? There's different forms of doing that, right? In today's age, right? First and foremost, right? If you can, hey, tap that ass, man. Whoop that ass if you can, right? But if not, right, and you're in fear of other things, there's other ways of disciplining your child that you can do, man. But again, the number one way, right, is to do what? Is to beat their ass, because that will ultimately drive away that rebelliousness, man. That will drive away, that sin. Right? As the scriptures say, fear driveth away sins, right? Roughly paraphrasing. You're not here to be your child's friend. You're not here to be your child's fucking therapist and shit. We're here to raise them and so that they can grow up and be righteous people, man. And operate the way that they should be in the world. That's what we're supposed to do. Because the opposite end of that is death. Is death, man. So you have to whoop their ass. That's a given. Sirach 30, and we'll read the last couple verses. I'll start at verse 11, and we'll get out of here. It says, give him no liberty in his youth and wink not at his follies. Don't be letting your kids get away with shit, man. That doesn't mean you're always going to be on their ass about every little thing that they do. You know what I mean? But still, right? You're not going to just let them get away with no dumb shit, man. It says, bow down to his neck while he is young. Give him things to do, man. Keep your kids busy. Keep them learning. Keep them, you know what I mean? Always busy, right? Hey, you know, some brothers, they got kids, you know, got their kids in sports and shit like that, man. Keeping the kids busy, right? Because if they ain't got nothing to do, hey, they're going to be busybodies, man. And that's what you don't want, right? Look that word up, right? It says, and be him on his sides while he is a child, lest he wax stubborn and be disobedient unto thee, and so bring sorrow to thine heart. That's right, man. You don't want no rebellious ass child, man. You know, that right there is a burden in itself, right? It says, chastise thy son and hold him to labor, lest his lewd behavior be an offense unto thee. That's right, man. You know, and again, you know, boys and girls are different, right? But nonetheless, you know, there's still a level of chastisement that has to be given to each one. You know, girls are a little bit, you know, physically softer, right? So you really let mom, you know, if you know mom's around, you let mom deal with that. You know what I mean? Boys, on the other hand, dad, you gotta whoop that ass, man. Now all these kids needs their ass whooped, you know, one point or another, man. Look at the way that not whooping my kid's ass, right, has been going, man. You got a whole bunch of fucking demons out here, man. You know, but I mean, that's all I really got, man. I just want to touch on that. Just something that was, you know, on my spirit, man. From what I had just seen, you know, Lord will was edifying. Lord will say to the point I want to give all praise, honor, glory to Yahweh, Bahashim, Yahweh Shai, Bahashim, Rachak Wadash, and said the other apostles, the other bishops, great millstone. Till next time, I say shalom.